guys. Welcome to the Cultivated Life podcast. I'm so glad you're joining me. This is a great day, and this is a great day for you to not only listen to the podcast, but to share it. Share it, subscribe to it, leave us a comment, give us a thumbs up. This is how you can help us move the podcast forward. Before we jump in with our guest, Jon Harris, we have a great guest. I can't wait for you to meet him. I want to share a few things with you that we do at the Cultivated Life. So my wife and I, Sharon, we put out a series of books. We have trainings. We do marriage retreats. We do all kinds of information to try to move people from believership to discipleship to leadership. That's really our goal. And so one of the things we do is in our books, this is a book on the Spirit-led life, embracing the leadership of the Holy Spirit. You can find all of our books at thecultivatedlifeministries.com, thecultivatedlifeministries.com. This is the fivefold frustration, the pain of leading outside your role. And if you are familiar with apostolic leadership of the apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, teacher, I break those down and I show through Scripture how those working together can be the most advantageous way to advance the kingdom. This is a seminar that I teach on how to build your future. And so it's called The Dream. And we talk about the why. It's a workbook. You can order it online. But we talk about what's your dream, we've had a number of people start businesses through this course. And so we talk about your why, your where, your what, your who, your how. We help you map out your future. If you want to pick one of those up as well, all of this comes through Amazon. You can go to Amazon or our website. And then Sharon put this together for kids. And this is a journey through the Bible for kids. And in 26 lessons, she walks with you, with your children, through 26 major stories of the Bible. So if that's something you want to share with your kids, this is not a book to give to your kids. It's a book. We believe in the importance of sitting with your children and talking about the things of God. That's how you raise up the next generation, and this book really helps you do that. So that's what we've got for that. Jon Harris, I'm glad you're here, buddy.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, this is great. We've known each other only for a few months now through a Bible study that we do together on Thursday mornings, and that's always some fun conversation. But other than that, I don't think we had met before then, and we met through Dr. Tom Bauer, a friend of ours.
Correct.
And so he brought you into the Bible study, and man, we have some great conversations. So tell us a little bit about yourself, you, your wife, your family, kids, grandkids, in-laws, outlaws.
Well, first of all, my name is Jon Harris, Jon, no H.
Exactly,
like
Jon.
And I'm 73.
Okay.
So I've been around a while. They say with gray hair comes wisdom. So, I tell everybody the wisdom is that you learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't make them again. I have a lovely wife, Lisa, a couple of kids, a couple of grandkids.
Awesome.
Spend a lot of time with the grandkids,
Yeah.
And train up a child in the way they should go.
That's right.
And there's not a lot of that out there. And I think it's on our generation because we have the time, to do that.
Yeah.
It's not like I punch a clock every day.
Right.
Even though I work,
Right.
I kind of set my own schedule, on a daily basis. And Bible says, lean not onto your own understanding, but always acknowledge him. So it's very important when I sit with my grandson that we fix breakfast and then we have to bless it before we eat.
Now, how old is this one?
He is 4. He will be 5 tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday to him.
That'll be his.
But see, that's a perfect age where you're fixing breakfast and you're saying grace and
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And he learns, we do healthy eating principles. We use Ezekiel bread, organic peanut butter, organic honey, bananas, and then all the fruits, and everything. So, and then we alternate between that and some cereal and oatmeal and, what have you. So
that's great. That's a
good.
great little routine.
Yes.
Because it's so important for everybody to have routines, healthy routines. Unhealthy routines are called bad habits.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Because your routines create your habits.
Yeah. We don't want to let them creep in there.
Exactly.
So, people say, well, you're very active for a person your age.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, well, I always said that I would never act my age. So, you're only as old as you feel,
Well, my grandmother said, she would say that she died in her 80s, but she was active right up till the very end. And she traveled all over the place doing missions work. But she would always say, you're only as old as you feel, and you're only as old as you let yourself think you are. Yep. And so she said, I'm a young person. And she acted like that all the time. She was just like you are, upbeat and encouraging. And that's one thing I found about you. You always got an encouragement. You're upbeat. I've never seen you come in depressed or sad or mad at somebody. You always just walk around with that happy spirit and that joyful spirit. So tell me a little bit about your life and how you got to where you are. Just a couple of nuggets, you know?
I think the farthest back memory that I have of my mother and teaching us. Now, I grew up in the church.
Yeah.
You and I have discussed before. My mother was Southern Baptist, so she was very strict. She was not one to spare the spoil the child.
Yeah. Well, that was a different generation because back then, me and you both felt that one.
Right. But what she did was she told me, son, just remember this. The people that read the most are the most successful. Knowledge is power. And people used to ask me, they said, well, what did you read? I said, well, when I was a kid, we always used to say, we lived down the holler, we were so poor you couldn't pay attention, right?
Yeah.
And there was only one book in the house. And we all learned to read from that one book. And the book was the Bible.
Yes.
And my mother said, there's no mistakes in there. Follow that up with when I was 5 years old and I found a dime. And my mother said, a penny of that goes to church. 10% of everything you ever make goes to the Lord.
She was putting that principle into you at 6?
Five. I was 5 years old.
She was teaching you principles at 5 years old that you still carry with you to this day. Yes. You found a dime. And it wasn't like, oh, that's no big deal.
That was a lot of money back then.
Yes, but she taught you the principle of 1 penny from every dime goes to the Lord.
Yeah.
Man, that's powerful.
And then, so all of my life, I've done that. She always said, and it wasn't always easy for her. My father traveled. He did work pipeline.
Okay.
So he was gone a lot. And they were kind of the wildcatters, so they were on opposite ends of the spectrum. They didn't always see eye to eye on things. His biggest complaint was, I send you money to pay the bills, this, that, and the other, and you give 10% of it to that preacher, and everything.
Yikes.
But she always said first things first.
Yeah.
And then, growing up, you were at church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, all week long revival, Bible school, whatever. She played the piano.
Really? Your mom played the piano at church?
Yep.
So she was there for sure.
Oh, yeah. And
which meant you were there for sure.
Right. And we probably only lived 2 or 3 blocks from the church. Yeah. So we were there when it was open, when it wasn't open, cleaning.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
And just helping out.
Yeah.
Wherever we could.
Wasn't that a great life, though?
It was a great life. And, people all the time say to me, you take your grandson to church with you, but he doesn't go to the nursery. When we first started off, we went to the nursery for a couple of months.
Yeah.
But he was so far ahead of that. And I thought it was a waste of time. And it took me back to when my mother took all of us, and there wasn't a nursery. And we sat in the pews. And if you fell asleep, you fell asleep in the pews.
Yes.
Maybe with your head on her lap or, whatever the case was. And then or a little storefront thing, and you're kind of like laying on the side. As we got older, we heard the preaching. We heard the word. So I want my grandson to have that same experience. So he sits there. He loves praise and worship.
Oh, wow.
He will get up on the chair and he's jumping up and down and raising his hand and he's amen and clapping and I
love that.
He loves, pastor. He loves the worship team. At home he has his own little guitar amplifier.
Oh, my goodness.
Microphone. that works. I mean, and everything. And
He's got his own little worship service going on.
And if something's not right, he tells his dad, that's not working right.
Oh,
Wow. So, but that's the gift. That's the joy.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, you get into elementary school, then you get into junior high and high school. Sometimes you're not the most popular person, only because you don't do what everybody else does.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, there's kids that are out, drinking, smoking, all this kind of stuff. No, that was a no-no from the get-go.
Yeah.
And then playing sports, football, coach was very strict.
Yeah.
Kind of like a preacher. Don't.
Yeah.
And you had to be at home at 10 o'clock in bed, and, just, it was very structured. And that's something that we lack today.
You had your mother, you had the church, and you had a coach.
Correct.
And that trifecta gave you the structure to become the successful man that you are today.
Right. Well, the coach was like a second father.
Yeah.
Because my father was never around. He wasn't in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time I got to high school, he was gone.
Yeah.
I mean, so that was a total issue. So, but the coach was a perfectionist. He was All-American in college and, got drafted, et cetera, et cetera. And there was no plan B. It's like, you're going to do this. You're going to go out. You're going to win. You're going to be the best.
He had a plan.
And that was it.
And he had goals, and you were a part of that plan, and you were a part of those goals.
Right. So, the thing was, it reminds me of the scripture in the Bible. Whatever you do, do it as unto the Lord, not to man.
Yep.
And, you give the Lord your best. Can't, never could, won't, never would.
Yeah. That's what my dad used to always say right there.
And we were just like, okay, this is the goal. This is how we're going to get there. This is what we got to do. Follow the steps. And it's just like in church, it's just like we don't judge people to come into the church. And I think that's part of our problem nowadays. A lot of people are like, oh, this one's got purple hair and this one's got all these piercings and the tattoos and this, that, and the other. We're supposed to be fishers of men. We're supposed to bring those people in and let the Holy Spirit catch them and clean them up.
You're right.
Sometimes we try too much to do that.
Yeah.
I think a big part of my success, whether it was high school, whether it was college, and then working, and then I was always the best in my class at that point. And, a lot of people didn't like that.
Let me ask you this, though. Do you think that ability to be a high achiever had any connection to the structure?
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
See, this is what I don't think people know,
right.
Or they don't understand.
No.
They may know it, but they don't really put it into action. Is they know there's a secret to being a high achiever, but they can't figure it out.
Right.
And watching people like you and listening to people like you, it's like, hey, here's a secret. If somebody will pay attention right now, they can grab this secret, the structure.
The structure. And just
set you up for success.
And we went back to talking about reading. Okay. My people perish for lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
If a little wisdom is a dangerous thing, who has so much as to be out of trouble?
Yeah.
So, you really need to get in the Word, study the Word. And I tell people, you want the Cliff Notes? The red letter teachings.
Yeah, there you go. The red letters are the Cliff Notes. You're exactly right.
But if a person wants to be successful in life, whether it's spiritually, mentally, physically, financially, whatever that is, read the Word, read the book.
The principles in this book.
The principles in this book, even if you're not a Christian.
Yeah.
If you apply the principles that are in this book, you can become very successful.
Yeah.
And the more you read the book, the more it convicts you.
Yep.
To where you, more often than not, become a Christian.
Yeah. You're exactly right.
And then you share those secrets and those principles, with other people.
Yeah.
And, as you and I have both said before, you need to surround yourself by people that are of like-minded faith. Yeah. And I was always told, you need to pick 5 friends that are smarter than you, that are more successful than you, that have been there that know and pick their brains.
Well, I call that having a board of directors.
Yes.
Every individual, especially people who are going to own businesses, people who are going to lead highly successful lives, people that really want to do more than maybe just the average get up every day and go to work kind of stuff, they need 5 people around them. I call it the board of directors, and you name them. Maybe it's finances, maybe it's real estate, maybe it's spiritual, maybe it's physical, a coach or somebody that, I mean, I don't know what your 5 look like.
Right.
Everybody has a different 5, you know?
Correct.
But you need that. Now, you've been very successful in business.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us how you got into the business and then how you got to your point of owning your first business.
Yeah. My original goal when I went to college, I was in pre-med. I was go pre-med, med school, internship, residency, special. I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. Right?
Okay.
So in the summer times, I worked in the hospitals, or I worked with the Board of Health in Cincinnati and the clinics in the inner city, and this, that, and the other. So, you know, again, being raised the way I was, and my mother was always saying, remember, God is no respecter of persons. You treat people with dignity and respect, they will treat you with dignity and respect. Having an aunt, uncle that lived in Cincinnati on the other side of the tracks, and, you know, we spent a lot of time with them, you know, and back and forth. So, and then when I got into college, working in Cincinnati, Lincoln Heights, Walnut Hills, over the Rhine, right?
Yeah.
Not the best areas to be in, but it was where God placed me, and I did.
I love that perspective. It's where God placed me. It's not like because I was I went there because I wasn't any good or because nobody believed in me. God put me there.
It was kind of like the chosen. You know, you were every point in my life. I have to think back for such a time as this. You know, so you don't question. Good things happen, bad things happen. Everybody likes it when the good things happen. People don't like it when the bad things are like, Lord, I've been doing everything right. I've done exactly what you wanted me to do. You know, why did this happen to me? Well, you know, I tell everybody that works for me, look, you learn a lot more from your failures than you do from your successes.
Yeah.
Because the success is great, and it, you know, it will continue to grow if you do things the right way. You know, and you're faithful. When you fail at something, you learn because you don't want to make that mistake again because it's painful. It might cost you mentally sleepless nights. It might cost you physically. It might, like a kid touching the stove. It might cost you financially, you know. So I always tell people, like, oh, you're a genius. Like, no. I said, here's the definition of genius. A genius isn't a person that learns from their mistakes. A genius is a person that learns from other people's mistakes and doesn't make them.
There you go. So they don't have to make the mistake.
Right. Yeah. And it's the same thing of success.
Yeah.
You can look and see, hey, somebody's got a formula for success. You don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
There's so many things out there today, just simple little ideas that people have come up with. It's just a better mousetrap.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, and then you look at what you do to be successful. So, you know, went to college, was working in the schools, worked in the city with the Board of Health and MNIC, maternal infant. I did a lot of different things, pediatric, geriatric, whatever. And then about the time I was getting ready to graduate to go to medical school, I came up with this brilliant revelation that I didn't have enough money. You know,
some people call it a rude awakening.
Yeah, and with everything that you've worked for and everything that you saved in the last semester that I was in school, I was working 2 full-time jobs.
Wow.
And going to school.
Yeah.
You know, and you didn't get much sleep either, you know.
Yeah. You're doing 100 hours a week. Yeah.
Right. And where I lived in Moorhead, I went to Moorhead State University.
Okay.
And I lived right across the interstate from where it comes into town. And lived in a off-campus house with 3 of my fraternity brothers that were there. And then they opened up a new McDonald's right across the highway out in what was a pasture, you know, in front of a hospital going into town. And since some of the fraternity brothers were working for KFC, they're like, hey, you ought to get a job there, you know, help pay your fraternity dues, right?
Yeah.
Which I think was a whole $30 a month or something back then, you know.
Yeah.
And then So I got a job at McDonald's, part-time, 45 hours a week.
Part-time, yeah.
And I went from doing crew to maintenance because crew paid, I think, $1.65 an hour when we started. That was 1975.
Yeah.
So November 15th this year, I'll have 50 years in. But,
wow.
I went to doing maintenance because it paid $2.25 an hour. And we didn't have breakfast or drive-thrus back then, so they closed at 11. They were usually out by 12. I would come in a little bit before 12. I was doing maintenance, sweep, mop, filter, shortening, clean the windows, do the trash, blah, blah, blah. I would be done by 8 o'clock in the morning when the openers got there. Say, see you, bye. Walk back across the street, go to my house, take a shower, change clothes, and go to class.
Wow.
So I had my classes like 9, 10, 10, 20, 11, 30, 12, 4, and labs and stuff in the afternoon. So, and then worked as a chemist for National Science Foundation in 1976 to see if you could get oil out of shale. We found out then it was profitable,
Yeah.
So had a different experiences. Well, a friend of mine lived in the mountains, and he lived probably about 30 miles from Hazard, Kentucky.
Oh, that is Appalachia. Yeah. That's the mountains. You're right.
That's in the mountains. You're off.
I thought you meant the hills.
You're off.
The hills are different from the mountains.
You're off the blacktop road. You're off the dirt road, and you're walking up the hill, the mountain, on the path, for a good 20, 30 minutes to get to the house. You get up when it's daylight, and you go to bed, and it was dark, but they ate very well. So, so I went and spent the weekend there. Well, when I got back, I happened to walk into the restaurant. I was wanting to get something to eat, and the owner just happened to be there, and he was an ex-hospital administrator. And he said to me, he goes, "Hey, been looking for you." And I go, "Yeah, I was gone this, weekend, etc." He goes, "Yeah." He said, "I hear you may not be going to medical school next year." And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to work a couple jobs, save money so that I can go." And he said, "Well, let me run something by you." He said, "Did you ever think about management?" I go, "No." And he goes, "Why not?" And I said, "I could continue doing research, which I'm doing now. I could get a job as a med tech. I could do a lot of things, that's in the field, this, that." And he goes, "Well, let me run something by you." He says, "I know you want to be an orthopedic surgeon." He said, "As a hospital administrator, I hired and fired doctors." And he said, "You're 23. He said, "You'll be 33 by the time you get out of school. You'll be 40 by the time you break even." And he said, "You come to work for me for 10 years as an outstanding store manager. Save your money. I will recommend you to the company for your own store as an owner-operator." And he said, "By the way, in 75, the average general practitioner was making 75 to 80,000 a year. And the average specialist was making about 120,000 a year. He said, the average McDonald's doing about $1.2 million with a 40% bottom line." He said, "You're a sharp young man. Do the math."
Yeah, that may add up.
And he said, "Come to work." He said, "You'll work a shift." And he said, "You'll come in like 3 in the afternoon, probably be out by midnight. We give you a salary, your uniforms, meals, insurance, paid vacations."
Sounding better all the time.
And I'm like, I could do one job instead of working 2 jobs and, do this and, have a life, et cetera, et cetera. So I took him up on it. Then I went in, I went through the ranks pretty quick because I was smart. And a lot of the people that unfortunately around me weren't.
And you understood structure.
And that was it.
Back to that structure.
And then having played football, basketball, ran track, etc., you're part of a team. And it was building a team. And you're only as strong as the weakest link. So when I went in,
you took those principles into
right off the bat. And then a lot of the stuff back then was memorization. We didn't have computers.
That's true.
Then.
Yeah.
People came in to take your order. You had to memorize the prices. You had to add it up in your head and the sales tax and tell them how much it was and take the money and and do that. And then till like 1976 later, 77.
Okay.
Young man came to see what we needed, a cash register system. And I was the training store for the Lexington, Kentucky market.
Okay.
At that time. So he came in, we worked together. And he said, "Well, that's pretty good. Where'd you get that idea? And how'd you do this? How'd you?" I said, everybody else was writing stuff down. We were the second, Mount Sterling, Kentucky was the second store in the state to have a drive-through. Harrisburg,
Really?
City of First was the first one, of
course. Oh, my goodness.
So And you were writing stuff with a grease pencil on a board, and adding it up and, this, that, and the other. And I thought, well, that's really slow, So I went to Radio Shack, got a monitor, got a keyboard, programmed everything. Limited menu back then. You
right.
Had 4 drinks and 2 sizes of fries.
Yeah, pretty simple.
Very limited. You put all the keys across the top of the board, hit enter and total, and shooting it through there. So then they devised the system.
That's interesting. So you were a part of that.
Correct.
So you were a part of research and development in the medical school.
Yep.
But when you went over into McDonald's, you didn't stop your research and development.
No,
you were taking initiative.
Well, that's just it. You have to be a self-starter. If you're going to be successful.
I've always said, if you're going to own your own business and you don't have somebody looking at your time card every week,
right,
you got to get yourself up and kick yourself in the rear because ain't nobody else going to do it.
No.
It's just a principle of life. You can't be successful unless you are a self-starter.
No. And that's why it's very important today.
Yes.
That we work with the kids.
Yeah.
When I was there, I worked with DECA, Distributive Education Clubs of America.
Okay.
Right? Like your vocational education type thing. And you're always looking for help, and you always want good help, and you're always trying to figure out how can I cut costs and how can I do this to be better, more successful. I took a couple of old cash registers and donated them to the high school. So they learned how to work the cash register
before they got you
at high school, before they got there. So when we did the drive-through and we won a contest for having the best drive-through times and won about every contest that they had. And then Corp comes to how did you do that? I said, I have all the officers and a dozen of these DECA kids that work for me, and they're all driven, and it's just, structure.
Yep.
Clockwork, brother, a couple sisters, cousins, whatever, and it's a family affair, but you do it. So you're always team building, in the church.
Yeah.
You're the pastor.
You're exactly right.
Okay, but your wife is right there.
You better believe it.
She, they say behind every good man's a good woman. Well, sometimes they're even out in front.
Exactly.
Not only running interference, but
I say behind every good man is a woman rolling her eyes, thinking I could do that better.
Exactly.
I can't wait to meet Lisa because I got a feeling.
Well, she's Italian. So,
boy.
And
that's awesome.
So, she's quick.
Yeah.
And put a little plug in for her. She owns Taste of Heaven Chocolates in Levis Commons.
Okay.
Mall right
there.
So
when you first go into Levis, you've got Biaggi's right there. Is it the first street you turn or the second?
It's the first street right past Biaggi, the actual street that has a name.
Yes.
Because that goes on Chapel Drive.
Yes, that's right.
So,
Chapel Drive.
So.
Yeah.
It's
across the street from Poco Piatti's?
Right across the street from Poco Piatti's.
Yeah. I took my grandkids there. I don't know. It was back during the summer. We were out there eating, and we walked over there, and man, they walked in that place. And it's the first time that I'd ever taken them in there. I've been there a few times, but we won't talk about that. I took my grandkids in there. They thought they were in heaven. They wanted one of everything because, the chocolates and the food and all the delicacies. It's not really... It's delicacies.
Yeah, it's all handmade,
oh my goodness,
handcrafted, and there's all the different kinds of chocolate. I thought I knew chocolate. I didn't know anything, until I started looking, seeing what they had with the vats and how they make everything and, all the processes that it goes through and individual. But again, when she bought the business, March of 2020.
Oh, wonderful timing.
And everybody said, that probably wasn't a good idea,
Yeah.
But before we decided to do that, being she's Italian, it was either bakery, chocolate, something like that.
Yep.
And she went online, saw Biz for Sale, right? And then we approached the gentleman, and he wanted way too much for it.
Yeah.
And then we finally got together, his accountant, my accountant, told him what it's worth, and, wrote him a check and sent him on his way. And she found out that he wasn't using all the ingredients that he should have been using. He was trying to cut corners.
Yeah, trying to make a little penny.
Before it was called Chocolat,
Okay.
Before it was Taste of Heaven Chocolates. Now it's Lisa's Taste of Heaven Chocolates,
There we go.
But she went to putting in full ingredients, and she created more recipes.
Yeah.
for like the gelato.
Oh my goodness.
And, for the chocolate. So
everything in there is delicious.
The wisdom part was, it's across from Poco Piatti's.
Mm-hmm.
So we put new awnings on there, which says coffee, gelato.
Ah, there you go. Yep. When people walk out of Poco Piatti's, there it is.
People, it's setting such that when people are sitting in Poco Piatti's and they're looking out the window, they can see the sign. They're like, oh, we'll have dinner here. We'll go over there for dessert, So
I love that. So when did you become an owner? So you went into management.
So I went into management. I worked, the plan was 10 years, right?
Yeah, that's what he said.
And then I was actually in about 12 years when I had my first opportunity. But that didn't pan out.
Yeah.
And I was heartbroken about that. But there was a reason. And it was a God reason. Mm-hmm. And had I taken that opportunity, I would have been in North Dakota, and where sometimes a friend of mine was working up there, and he says, we have a sign that says where the coffee is free when it's 50 below. We give away a lot of coffee.
That's not a good advertisement.
A lot of coffee.
I appreciate the nicety of the free coffee, but the 50 below, no thank you.
And the gentleman that owned the restaurant had been there 5 years, and it was a AAA operation. And so my first question was, why do you want to sell? You're doing this great. He says, my wife is from Florida. And she said she doesn't like it up here. She's going back to Florida. Either I can come with her.
That sounds like my wife.
Or I can stay here.
I'm out of here.
He said, God family.
Yeah,
we're going. But I decided not to do that either.
That's probably a good move.
Yeah, because my wife wasn't too wild about that at the time. But long story short, I went back. I worked for the operator for like 13 and a half years. And then at that point, I thought, I think I could do better than this. And then I took off from working with that owner-operator to do consulting.
Okay, yeah.
And, I was blessed that the guy that I worked for was probably one of the top 5 operators in the United States.
Yeah.
But he had a lot of great help. My boss, me, who both became operators and ran great numbers, and which made him very fortunate, very wealthy, and successful and everything. So I could show other people how to do this and how to make money and set my own time, my own hours, be my own boss, and do my own thing.
Yeah.
And I did that for a couple of years. And then the guy that used to be my boss was an owner, and he said, hey, he had stores in Grayson, Kentucky, and he'd been in West Virginia.
Okay.
He's like, I want to sell my store there and go up, look at some stores in Pennsylvania, which we did. Yeah. That didn't pan out. And then he said, oh, there's some stores up in Port Clinton, Catawba, Fremont, Clyde.
Yeah.
He said, why don't you go up there and take a look at those? I said, why don't you go up there and take a look at those? And if you think it's a deal, I'll look at them.
Yeah.
And I went up there February, I think it was of 91. And I looked at him, and he says, what do you think? And I said, well, it needs a lot of work. But, I'd always done the turnaround. So when I worked for the previous operator, he would buy a store that was a down store. It was my job to go in there, clean them, staff them, turn them around, make them successful, et cetera, till the next one came up. Long story short, he made it worth my while. I went up there in April of 91, and I said, I'll be here for 6 months. I'll help you get it up and going, and then I'm going to go do my own thing. Yeah. Right? 6 months turned into 10 years.
Wow.
Because...
So now you're managing for someone else.
Yep.
For 20 years or 20.
Well, I was his director of operations, and then took him from 4 stores to 8 stores.
And then when did you step into owning your own McDonald's?
And then in 2000.
So 25 years ago.
Yep. Yeah. And in 2000, in 1999, I had applied to the company to become an owner-operator. Because I had the best credentials, and the company actually wanted me to become an owner-operator.
Yeah, well, sure, that's good for them.
I was running this great operation, and when opportunity knocks, you just have to open the door.
Yeah.
And, it's not about money.
Yeah.
It's about knowledge, skills, how you treat people. and how you want to be treated. And the company came to me and they said, John, we need somebody with your skills to take over in the city stores in Youngstown, Ohio. And my first answer was, why would I want to go to Youngstown, Ohio? That's the armpit of the world. I mean, you got the gangs, you got the mafia, you got, at that time, they were 10th most deadly city in the United States, number 4 in murder. They used to be number 1.
Yeah.
They actually had a bar that printed shirts, Youngstown, number 1.
Yeah, they were proud of it.
Murder capital.
What a thing to be proud of.
Right. Then I said, why would I want to go there? He goes, we'll make you an offer you can't refuse. I said, I hear they do a lot of that there,
Yeah.
And so I went, I looked, I turned them down. And I said, no, those are too far gone. You wouldn't even know they were McDonald's if they didn't have the sign on there,
Wow.
And I mean, the gentleman that owned them had 25 restaurants. And he didn't want to be involved in the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
Which is what they
So
were.
he just kind of let them take care of themselves, and that always...
He got a lot of government money. Because they were inner city stores to work with at a 0% interest loan for, I think, 5 years, and then probably never paid that back. But a gentleman that I had met in 1980 when we were at a managers convention, and I was outstanding store manager of the year for the Indianapolis region. He was outstanding store manager from the New York region. And we were meeting at the Hyatt Regency in Dearborn with the Michigan region for an awards banquet.
Yeah.
And so when the banquet was over, the 3 of us got to go up to the president's suite. And we're up there talking and playing cards, back in the day, honk, spades, hearts, whatever.
Yeah.
And then we're talking about, hey, what's it like where you're at? And he said to me, he goes, okay, you're in the Indianapolis region, but stores in Kentucky. He said, how often do you get robbed? That's his first. He's in the Bronx.
Oh, wow.
And I said, about twice a year. And he looks at the guy from Detroit. He goes, well, how often do you get robbed? He goes, about twice a month. So then we asked him, okay, how often do you get robbed? Because we knew that was kind of leading in that direction. He goes, 2 or 3 times a week.
Oh, my goodness.
And we're like, how do you handle it? He goes, well, we put some money in the bag under the counter, and the little gangbangers come in. They want drug money. We give to them. They go away.
Wow.
So we had developed a rapport. He was an athlete. I'd been an athlete, so we
found a common denominator.
Basketball, track, et cetera. And then 20 years later, I put my application in. I'd already been approved, but our regional manager is leaving and going out to Phoenix. So we're getting a new regional manager, vice president. And it just happened to be this gentleman called George Forrest from the Bronx in New York. He was on the company side.
Had that relationship.
Had gone up. He comes in and sees my application. He calls me and says, is this Jon Harris from I'm like, one the same. He goes, well, I thought so. I was looking at your hobbies and this, that, and the other. And he said, we need somebody with your skills to do this. And, he said, number 1, you're a people person. You get along with anybody. He said, number 2, you're our number 1 operations. Operations better than anybody because I was a training store. And he said, number 3, you can survive. We won't find you stuff in the closet somewhere in the city because from 72 to 76, when I was in college, I was in martial arts for 4 years in Chamberlain. So that was, another regiment.
A little
training.
But it's another advantage that you have is survival skills. Yeah.
So,
wow.
So I turned them down.
Yeah.
It was like August. I turned them down in September. I turned them down in October. And then, my wife said to me, she goes, I know you've been praying about this. Do you think maybe we need to fast and pray? I said, yeah, probably. Good idea. Being Pentecostal, Spirit-filled, we know what prayer and fasting does.
Yeah.
And when we do a fast, it's a hard fast, nothing but water. And so I said, well, let's just fast for a week and pray. So we did. And I lived Catawba Island, right on the lake. And I used to take my Bible, go out, sit in my chair, and the commercial fishing went on right behind where I lived. So it's like, okay, you can pretend you're Peter, James, and John out here, with the commercial and all this, kind of stuff. So I'm sitting there doing this and reading my Bible, and it was Sunday afternoon, 2:14 in the afternoon. God spoke to me. And he said, people say, oh, God spoke to you? I said, God, the Holy Spirit, one and the same.
Yeah, exactly.
I heard from
God.
God.
Call it what you want.
Right?
Exactly, yeah.
And he said, you're going to get a call from corporate, and they're going to ask you what it would take for you to do the deal. And you tell them 5 things. And he gave me the 5 things.
Wow.
2 days later, I get a call from George Forrest, 9:14 in the morning. And he said, John, Kevin Dunn, the division president, wants to fly down from Chicago and meet with you at Quail Hollow in Cleveland at a meeting. Do you think you can make it? On Thursday, and I'm like, yeah, I think I can make it. So I show up. The meeting's 9 to 5. I sit through the whole meeting.
Yeah.
About 20 after 5, I'm still standing around. And George gives me the, come here, right? And I walk over, and he says to Kevin says, oh, you must be the guy that George has been telling me about. How do I know your name? And I said, well, maybe I'm a charter member of your President's 100 Club for keeping 100% of their promises to their people, and having less than 100% turnover. And that charge was like 250. But, you treat people right. You hold on to people and build a team. And he says, no, that's not it. He said, tell me, there's something else. I said, well, you had a service contest, so you had the fastest drive-through service. And I said, a new regional record. And he goes, no, there's something else. And George tells me, like, tell it, because I wasn't going to toot my horn. And I said, well, I set a new Central Division record. He's the Central Division president.
Gotcha.
And he said, well, then you set a national record. And I go, yeah. And he goes, how did you do that? And I said, I hired people that nobody else would hire and trained them to do a job, and God gave them a mind to work. And he goes, what would it take for you to do the deal?
Yeah.
So I told him 5 things, and I gave him the 5 things. And he goes, I'm good with that. He goes, now, George has got a P&L to run. I can't really force him to do it, but I think I could twist his arm on the way back to the airport. He'll get in touch with you within 24 hours. The next morning, now mind you, it's 9:14 in the morning again. Okay?
Same time.
So you're 2:14, 9:14, 9:14, 2 times 7 is 14. All this is running through my head. And then George says to me, he goes, okay, you want these 5 things, which he named them. And I'm like, yes. He said, anything else? And I said, I don't think so. And he goes, are you sure? And the Holy Spirit spoke to me. He says, tell him to put it in writing. You've just got a verbal. And I'm like, George, can you put that in writing? And he said to me, he goes, what, you mean you don't trust me? Lord spoke to me again. And I said, no, it's not that I don't trust you. It's just I know how good you are. You left there and came here. You'll be here for a couple of years. You'll go somewhere else. I'll be left holding the bag, with a verbal.
Some new guy comes in.
Right, comes in, and he may or may not honor that. Yep. He goes, put it in writing, overnight it to him. I want it back in 24 hours.
Wow.
Now, mind you, this was November the 9th of 2020. So he said, so we're good to go for the 15th, which was supposed to be December 15th. I said, yeah, December 15th. That's good. He goes, no, November 15th.
Next week.
Yeah. And I'm like, he goes, is that a problem? I said, well, do I get the same benefits for those 30 days that you're going to give me like for the next, 3.5 months? He goes, yes. I said, I can do that. So, I had very limited time to get incorporated and get everything I needed to do. And that was another story, which was all God.
You've owned multiple McDonald's and bought and sold and moved.
Correct.
But you keep saying this thing. And I want you to talk about this for a while. You talk about the Word from the time you were a child. You talk about prayer. And you talk about fasting.
Yes.
Now, I think that many people, most Christians would agree, those are 3 critical top tier.
Yep.
And then you've talked about giving. So talk to me about, your mom taught you these things. You and your wife have come to agreement on some of these things. Talk to me about your prayer life, your giving, and you don't have to go into details, but just your attitude toward generosity, but fasting and prayer and the Word, because this seems to be the bedrock.
What's the Trinity
of who you are?
Success. Of
success.
Correct.
So talk to me about prayer. Talk to him about the word. Talk to him about fasting.
I tell people, read, which we do.
Yeah.
I said, and people go, oh, yeah, you got to get in the word. You got to get in the word. I said, yeah, that's true. But more important than that, you need to get the word in you.
Yeah. Instead of me getting into the word, get the word in me. Yeah.
There's the Rhema and there's the Logos, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, everybody wants to hear that Rhema word, right? They don't spend the time in the word.
Yeah.
Because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh, right?
Yeah.
So you have to get in here.
So the Logos word, for those that may not know, the Logos word is this word. But the Rhema word is when God takes this word. And when you said you were sitting on your back porch, looking out over the fishermen, and the Lord spoke to you and said this, or God said 5 things, those are Rhema words that are anchored in the Logos word.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And, Jesus is the word.
Yeah. He
the
said,
living word.
Yeah.
I'm
it.
So, for years I would sit, people ask me, well, what do you do as an owner? I said, well, the basics are make sure you got the right people in the right place with the right product and right promotion. You give them the tools to do the job. Yeah. And then you hold them accountable. If you don't give them the tools, you can't hold them accountable, but you give them what they need. I said, but really more important than that is prayer. And I said, people ask me, well, how's your day run? I said, well, it used to be I would get up in the morning, I would give me something to drink, sit down with my Bible and read maybe an hour and a half, however I felt led to do it. And then I would pray, starting out in English and then praying in the Spirit, just however long I felt led, to do it. And then about 3 years ago, God spoke to me and he goes, I want you to start praying before you ever get out of bed. So now I wake up whatever time it is in the morning. Sometimes God wakes you up at 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't set an alarm, and but whatever. Then I will get up, wake up, and I start praying. I go
before
to bed,
you ever get out of bed.
I go to bed praying, put myself to sleep, and I wake up.
First thing you do.
And start praying.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that old story that the devil's, oh my God, he's up again,
That's what you want to hear every morning.
Here he goes.
He woke up again.
And then I will spend a lot of time, in prayer, first for my immediate family, extended family. My wife's Italian. There's a lot of family on that side.
There's a lot to pray about.
And, there are. And my wife used to say to me, how do you pray so long? Because, sometimes it's an hour or two, sometimes whatever. But the thing is, I said, well, there's a lot of people to pray for. Yeah. There's a lot of needs out there. And I said, whether it's your in-laws, outlaws, whoever it is, because I pray for those that use you and speak bad about you.
Which is what Jesus told us to do.
Yeah, it's easy to pray for.
Yeah, the people you like. Family. The people you like. Yeah, bless them, Jesus.
But my wife's like, well, that's good for you. She said, I'd probably be praying that Psalms prayer, Lord, strike them down in their generations and kids and, whatever. So, Yeah. But we laugh and we talk about that. And then after you pray, then read.
Then you get into the Word.
And as my kids were growing up, and we lived in a 2-story house, and their bedrooms were upstairs, and mine's downstairs. And, I would be out. So when they got up in the morning to get ready for school, they would see me reading my Bible.
That had to be a powerful thing for them to get up every morning. Now, they probably didn't know it. They were thinking about lunch and what they were eating for breakfast and getting dressed and getting their books. But when they look back, that has to be a powerful anchor in their life to know. Dad's talking to God. And Dad's reading the Word.
As I tell people, don't talk the talk if you can't walk the walk. And the best sermon you'll ever preach is the life you live. So, you model
especially in front of your kids.
You model that behavior.
Yep, you do.
They may not always follow that.
Nope. You can't control that.
And I tell people, this is what you do. You do the best that you can do to raise up that child. Yeah. And the way they should go. Now, they get maybe 15, 16, 18. Yeah. They're out in the world. There's influences there. You hope that you've put enough word into them.
Yeah.
And you've put your time in prayer to have that hedge of protection around them,
Yeah.
and then you just believe in God and it's in his hands.
Yeah.
Because
as a parent, you can only take them so far, and then you have to then trust them to Jesus.
Correct.
And that's the hard part.
That's the hard part.
Is you feel, I think there's a lot of parents that feel guilt about their adult children and the way they're acting or living, and you can't carry that. You have to look and say, I did the best I could.
Right.
I know that there are parents that struggle with that a lot, and they're like trying the best they can. Mm-hmm. And I encourage them, don't beat yourself up. No. Do the best you can.
No, and you have to know that the story of the prodigal son is in the Bible for a reason.
Come on now. That is so true.
And if you go back to...
That is so true. We always get to the end where he comes back.
Correct.
But we don't talk about the years the father sat on the porch waiting for him.
Waiting and praying and God show him the error of his ways and bring him back and this, that, and the other. And a lot of people like, bring up the child in the way he should go. And when he's old, he'll not depart from it. Mm-hmm. And they go, well, what about that? I says, did you read it? Did you understand it? It says when he's old, he'll not depart from it. It doesn't say when he's young, he won't depart from it. Yeah. I said that's those growing years, learning years.
You're right.
And just think about that. Even though Jesus was in the temple when he was 12, he didn't really effectively start his ministry till he was 30.
30 years old. Yeah, you're right.
And there was 18 years there that both his heavenly father and earthly father was working with him and seeing his mother and how she, they lived their lives and everything. And even when he did his first miracle, people say, he changed water into wine. Why did he do that? He said, because his mother asked him to. Obey thy mother and thy father that it might be well with you.
That's right.
One of the 10 Commandments. He had to be obedient to his mother.
Even though he said, it's not my time.
Right. He says, it's not my time, but because you asked me.
We both said but at the same time.
He had to be obedient to his mother. And then when he goes to go to the cross and he's speaking to his father, he says, Lord, is there any way this cup can pass? Not my will, but thy will be done.
You know what I've always felt like? I felt like that's where Jesus died. Not physically, but that's the point of surrender.
Died to self.
Is when he said, boy, I could cry thinking about what Jesus did for us. But when he said, not my will, but your will be done, I always look at that and say, that's where he waved the white flag and surrendered and said, I'm dying to my flesh. Yep. I know what's coming. It ain't going to be pretty.
No.
It's going to be brutal, but I'm ready because it's your will. Wow.
Right. And that only came through prayer in the garden.
Yep.
So intense, sweating drops of blood.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so that was, in a way, a shedding of blood even before he was crucified.
Yep.
On the cross, and the power of life, being in the blood. But back to the prayer and fasting and then living that life. And, people would say, well, do as I say, not as I do. No, you got to do it. Yeah. You got to put it out there. And then I think because I've done that, then I became successful. Because my goal when I first became an operator was I'm going to tithe 10%, and then I'm going to give offerings. And the tithe gets your needs met, gets the church's needs met. Yep. That's what's owed. That's what's due.
That's the starting point.
Right.
Yep, that's the bottom line.
And I said offering is the over and above. That's where the blessing comes in. And the first 2 years and 8 months that I was an owner-operator, I had negative equity. Wow. Because I'd taken over the worst of the worst and invested everything I had trying to build this business up. And it wasn't until after that I got in the black. But the whole time I was tithing and giving offering. And a couple of older gentlemen that had retired that I went to church with, and we served in the church as ushers. And this, that, and the other. One retired from Packard Bell and the other one from GM, and started their own businesses, after that. And we would meet and have lunch and feed people and this and that. He says, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. He goes, look, these guys knew me inside and out.
Yeah.
And they said, we know you're not making any money. How do you decide what you tithe, what you give to the church?
Yeah.
And I said, you really want to know the truth? He goes, yeah. I said, I tithe on what I want to make.
Oh.
And he goes,
now there's a whole new thought.
And he goes, wow. He said, I never thought about that before. He said, that's pretty, I'm going to have to start trying that. Both of them did.
Yeah.
And within a year, they were both extremely blessed.
Yeah.
And then God blessed me that after being there 7 years, had an opportunity to leave there and come to the Toledo market.
Yep. You left Youngstown, came to Toledo. Yeah.
So at the year 8, so you got, completion, new beginnings, etc. And then 2009, I showed up January 1, 2000 in Toledo. Same situation, had Front Main, Cherry and Bancroft, Reynolds and Hill, Lasky.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I was here, my first meeting as an owner-operator in Toledo, 28 days, January 28th. 4 times 7 is 28. I had an operator come up to me and he says, I want to sell you a store. Now, mind you, I hadn't even been in town a month.
Wow.
I'd never, ever asked to buy stores.
Yeah.
Never did.
And they're coming to you.
Anywhere. And I said, well, which one? He goes, take your pick. And so I chose one. He was having some financial difficulty. He'd had cancer and, had a lot of issues. So to help him out, and I told him, I said, look, I know this store needs work and, there's going to be a lot of money put in it, but I will give you 5 times cash flow for it. And that was way more than it was worth.
Yeah.
And everything. So I blessed him, provided that if he ever sold another one that I wanted, which was around I-75 on Lexus Road, I had first dibs on that, right?
Yeah.
So 3.5 months in, half of 7, I got store number 5. Okay.
Wow.
3.5 months later, another operator passed away, had Monroe in Detroit, called Wooden Door, and his wife came to me, and we were opposite ends of the spectrum.
So God is trusting you with success.
Yep.
He's trusting you with success.
So then I was here, and I got 7 stores in 7 months.
Wow.
When I left to Youngstown to come here, what I didn't tell you, I sold the stores for 7 times what I paid for.
Wow.
But, and then, I had people would come in, bought my next store the next year on July the 1st, 7th of the month, first day. And so these things all just kind of roll in.
Yeah.
And then corporate comes and meets with me and they go like, we need to ask you some questions. And I go, what? They go, well, you're showing probably double the sales, customer count increase that the other stores are around you, and this is like 2010. Wasn't the best time.
Coming out of that recession.
And they're like, how do you do that? And I said, well, you know what my corporate entity is, don't you? And they go, yeah, JC something. And I was like, JCILH Inc. And they go, well, what's that stand for? And I said, well, the H stands for Harris. That's me. I said, the first 4 letters stands for my partner. We put him first, us last. He doesn't work. We reap the benefits. McDonald's doesn't allow you to have partners.
Oh.
So then they're like,
oh, now
they're
that? They're raising their eyebrows
and
now.
And then I'm like, I said, well, what is in this lady who's from Chicago, which I had known for a lot of years.
Right.
And a good Christian woman. And she goes, Jesus Christ what? And I said, Jesus Christ is Lord Harris Incorporated. I said, 25% of everything we make goes back into ministry. It's get the kids off the street, help out the schools, help this, that, and the other. And I said, Bible says you sow sparingly, you reap sparingly. You sow bountifully, you reap bountifully. We sow bountifully, we reap bountifully.
Yes.
She goes, okay, shut the book. And I mean, it was a big, thick book. And I said, you sure you don't have any more questions? She goes, no. She says, you've known me for a long time. She says, there's one thing I never told you. And I said, what's that? She goes, I'm a PK.
Oh, man. Preacher's kid. That's PK. That's right.
And she said, my dad's a bishop at a big church in Chicago. And she says, so, yeah, I get it. I
get it.
And we talked. But then God just continued to bless, and then my job today, number one, is take care of family, take care of the church and everything, the needs of the church for different ministries, that you have a ton of ministries around
exactly
the church.
Right. Yeah.
And it's all about people and leading people to Christ.
Exactly. Yep.
And everything, every little avenue. And then over the course of time, you get more involved in that.
Yeah.
And then the business thing becomes less important. And it's to the point, where people are like, how much longer are you going to do this? You can't be doing it because you need the money. I said, God is good and we are blessed. Yes. Money doesn't buy happiness.
Yeah.
Some of the most miserable people I know have more money than they know what to do with, but they don't have God.
They don't have Jesus.
They're still looking for something to satisfy that missing.
So they buy this, they go here, they do that.
Right.
Yeah, they're always chasing something.
And I just tell them, look, and I share with them. And then one operator came one day and he goes, you got to be the luckiest person in the world. He says, you could fall backwards and something come out smelling like a rose. And I said, well, I'm not lucky, I'm blessed.
Yeah.
And then I share with him, this is what you
do.
Those
principles.
The favor. And
so you've talked about the principle of prayer, how you pray, the principle of the word.
Yes.
The principle of fasting.
Definitely.
And the principle of generosity.
Absolutely.
And it seems like those are the cornerstones.
That's it.
Of your life.
Yes. And
Man,
I think,
that's an amazing story.
And it's just like, every time I give, I get blessed.
Yeah.
Now, I don't give to get blessed.
I
get blessed because
effect.
I give.
Yeah.
And one guy told me one time, he says, oh, the reason you get blessed so much, he says, you're a willing vessel. You're empty yourself out and God can fill you. Yeah. And I said, no, I'm not a vessel. I said, I'm more like a garden hose. I said, it goes in one end, comes out the other.
Wow, yep.
Because my old pastor said, look, John, if God can get it through you, he will get it to you. And God knows who will.
Yes.
Whether it's the talents, the 2, the 5, the 10, who will invest and get a return for the kingdom.
Yeah.
And then who doesn't? And are you sowing seed into good ground?
Good ground. I think that's the kind of a hidden key when people talk about generosity, is they think that if they just throw money at stuff that it's
no,
and then they can't find the blessing.
No,
it's the good soil. It's the good soil,
right.
And you've got to find the good soil. And I love this revelation that you've shared with us. And we're going to wrap this up. For those of you that are watching, I'm telling you, you've heard gold today. You have heard gold today. You need to make notes on the 4 principles that are the cornerstone of Jon Harris's life. So thank you for joining us on our podcast today, The Cultivated Life. You can find out more about Sharon and I. You can find all of our books, find out more about what we do at the cultivatedlifeministries.com. And we would love to be able to connect with you. If there's any way we can serve you, we would love to do that. Hey, give us the thumbs up, share this, leave a comment below, and we look forward to seeing you again real soon. We speak the blessing of the Lord over you, and we just believe God has good things in store for you.